All right, so now let's have this service in place, right? And for that, the product service. And this is what we need to change here, right? So because now we are supporting that specification as well, right? And so accordingly, which we need to change here. And let's think about that, like what we are going to have in here. Like, so pageable is going to be part of that. And as part of a specifications, we are generally considering the brand ID, type ID, and the keyword, right? So that is what which we need to supply here. And so let's extend this. So we are going to have this integer, let's call it as a brand ID. And let's again have an integer, let's call as a type ID. And let's have a string which is going to be the keyword here, right? And that's there, right? And of course there will be a problem, so we need to go into that in its implementation, and then accordingly we need to do the implementation here. So the very first thing which I will do here, I'll just simply borrow this as is, just to avoid any kind of typos or any, and the save time as well, right? So this is now fine. So at least you see that the red squiggly around override has gone, and that thing is like matching the signature, right? So this is first thing. And now let's start from here, right? So what we need to do here is like we can start something from here itself, like let's say a specification, right? So a specification which we need to take care here. And let's initialize this. Let's say this is going to be the product, right? And this is in here, right? We need to decide on the spec, like what kind of a spec it is going to be. And let's have initially as where, let's provide this as a, so here we need to supply the query here, and that is on top of that this query gets built in, right? So that is where it happens. So dynamically it constructs that, and initially this is, I'm just sending this a spec as null. And now let's see that how to build that. So if branch id is not equals null, right? So what we are going to have, so this is one criteria is going to be. And in this case, like let's say we are just going to build the spec dot equals a spec dot, and here we are just going to suffix the same with the and operator, and let's it comes. So yep, so this is where, and I need to supply this. Let's say what is the query it's going to be, and let's say that it is going to take us like root query and the create builder, and with that it is going to take it, right? So in here, like you see this specification product, and now this it is going to take as in, let's say root and our query, and let's say it's going to have a criteria builder as well. So if you just look at here, criteria builder, hope I'm typing correctly. And now we need to build on top of this, right? So this goes in, and from here criteria builder will look for that now equals, and in this case this expression is going to come into play, and it will check for that. Okay, if that brand is there, so get the brand with the id and then supply that brand id, right? So equal, if the root dot get that criteria builder dot equal, and in here what we need to dot, so this root we can take, and from here we can take this get, and now look for the brand which we are actually checking, like, and if that brand is there, right? So what it is going to do, right? So in that case, right, we are just going to have get the id of this, and let's have this, and then supply the brand id to that, right? So that way this will be fine. So and this is your query, so this is your first query, and this itself is we are actually building this different specs here. So likewise we are also going to build for the type id. So likewise, what we are going to do is we are going to have another specifications which is going to be built over here. But before that, let's understand this what we are doing here, right? So this is part of our specification pattern itself, which is nothing but like extended by JPA itself, right? And that is what we are actually building the specs, right? So that if and what we are doing basically like the first of all, like we are checking if brand ID is not null. That means if there is a filter which wherein user tries to filter this by the brand ID itself. So if the brand ID is not null, then what it will do, it will simply go ahead and add this specification, like basically concatenate this specification with this AND operator itself. And that means like then our lambda expression will come into play, wherein root query and criteria builder is the main thing. And if you see this root, like it basically represents the entity being queried, and in this case this is that product which is getting queried, and the query is going to represent the overall query which is going to be dynamically constructed, which we are actually doing here, right? And that is what we are actually trying to fetch here. And then the criteria builder provides a method to construct the criteria expressions and the predicates, right? So this is what is happening, right? So within this lambda expression, you see that criteria builder dot equal to create an equality predicate, which is happening. So the criteria builder equal basically compares two expressions for equality, and root dot get, which you are seeing here, right? So what it is doing is like if you see this root dot get brand, right? So and then dot get ID, so this retrieves the ID attribute of the brand attribute, right, which you are seeing here, from the product entity itself. So it navigates through the entity graph, accesses the ID of the brand entity associated with the product. So this, you see, understand this expression, how this is getting built over here. And the brand ID which you are seeing, this is the value you want to compare with the brand dot ID, right? And it's the value provided as a parameter to the method. So if this exists, right, and if it matches, and then it what happens, like from this equals operator, if it matches, then it is going to return you that the final result to that. Otherwise it is going to return you that empty collection as itself, right? So this is it, like at from the perspective of building this specification pattern as in first spec which we have built right now. Now in the next video, what we are going to do is we are going to complete this template, and then we are going to see that how it actually works.